I was looking at the definition of surrender. One of the dictionaries gave really good definitions of it, obviously, and there are different definitions of surrender even within that dictionary. But the one that really resonated with me was the one that says to agree to stop fighting, hiding, resisting, because you know that you will not win or succeed. And this made me think, like, do we fight God then? Are we hiding from God? Are we resisting God's love? Are we resisting His supply? Are we resisting His kindness? Maybe we don't believe we deserve it, or we don't believe that it's real. We don't believe that He actually means what He says when He says, today's today, and I will give you all that you require, and daily load you with benefits. Therefore, we're then fighting a losing game. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Travel Light. It's your friend, as always, Dr. Unoma. I hope you guys are well. For my new friends, I am Dr. Unoma. I am a psychiatrist based in Glasgow, sunny Scotland, and I'm a lover and follower of Jesus. And here at Travel Light, we are on a quest to live the abundant life, guys, freely and lightly. And we are exploring emotional and mental health through the lens of the Good Shepherd himself, Jesus. And we're here just figuring out what it looks like to give God access in this space. So welcome again. And again, I have to say this every episode. If you haven't done so yet, I'd love you to please subscribe to the channel. It just means that every time I have new content coming out, which by God's grace is every week, definitely every week, you're the first to know, and you can join in on the conversation and be part of what we are doing here. And if you love the content, please go ahead and like the video and share with a friend who you think will enjoy and benefit from the discussions we have here. So again, welcome, make yourselves comfortable. How are you guys doing? How is your heart doing? You know, it's that halftime portion of the year now. The first half is gone. It's crazy. It's July, but thank God things are moving. What are you grateful for in the time that has passed so far? What have you won at? And even if it's been little, have you given yourself credit for that? Have you given God credit for that? It's important to really be grateful and keep a heart of gratitude. Today I'm really grateful for a healthy body. I'm grateful for a job. I'm grateful for Travel Light. I'm grateful for every listener that tunes in every week to listen to what I have to say. At the weekend, oh my goodness, I went to the cinema with they're not my kids, my family, and we watched Inside Out. Inside Out 2. If you haven't seen the first one yet, first of all, go watch that. Inside Out 2 was epic. It was just awesome. And this is not a plug. I'm just saying it was awesome. I may not have cried, or maybe it was allergies, I don't know, but it was wonderful. And it was just so Travel Light. So if you want to kind of understand more about emotions and what goes on inside of you when you are freaking out or not, it's a really good resource in my opinion. And yes, I cried to cartoons. Anywho, we have been exploring the topic of stress, and I hope you even find it helpful. And do you know what? Thank you to everyone who has sent me messages or left a comment saying that they found the conversation interesting and helpful. It is so encouraging, and it's just so nice to know that the little seeds you sow are kind of bearing fruit somewhere. So thank you. Let's keep them coming. But you know, the other day I was getting set up for the last episode actually, and my husband normally helps me to get the video cameras and all that set up because, to be honest, it's not my wheelhouse, certainly not yet. And as I was kind of, walking through my script and getting ready to record, he said something, and you know what? Love my husband. He is very kind, but sometimes he can be so blunt, but sometimes necessary. He just said, you know what? Just make sure that you are practicing what you preach here and you don't live a life of a fake guru, as they are on the internet. And I was, that really hit home, because the truth of the matter is having to churn out content regularly and, keep momentum going and things can be pressure filled. And I was thinking about it. I was like, do you know what? I'm now allowing myself to become overwhelmed by this task and becoming stressed about talking about stress, which is an irony. And, I think we get the point. So I think it's just a reminder for myself and also for everyone who's listening to really take time to sit back and reflect and check in with yourself. What is going on? what am I dealing with? What am I not paying attention to? What are the big issues brewing on my heart that I'm pushing down that, eventually will come back and haunt me? Very, very important. So as we're talking about stress, and as I am talking about stress, it's important that we are really reflecting on things and figuring out where we can course correct. So in the last episode, as you know, we dug into the scriptures, dusted off the Bible, as they say, and we dug into the timeless words of Jesus himself, searching, I think it was Matthew 6, and listen to one of the most challenging yet comforting words Jesus spoke. And today we're going to go deeper still into scripture, and I hope you're ready. So let's travel light together. So Matthew 6, we were talking about worry last time and anxiety and how these are kind of different from stress, but sometimes present in similar ways. Well, Matthew 6 really is an invitation to surrender. It's really an invitation to live a let go life, as I've come to understand this. It's allowing ourselves to be children so that Father God can be our dad, as Jesus came to reveal, and to return back to the original design, his original dream for us to live a life of sonship and not orphanhood. It's allowing ourselves to be helpless and completely dependent sheep that we are, and let him lead the way and lead us to paths of righteousness so that he can take care of us for his name's sake. And even when we're wounded, especially when we're wounded and we can't seem to find our way back to life, that is a time to be completely helpless and just look for the Good Shepherd and let him guide us. It's an invitation to let ourselves be the bride, and he can be the groom, and he can rise up to that glorious role of wooing us and drawing us near to him and giving us his heart and being his people, and he can be our God. And notice that I say, let ourselves. I say that because I found in myself anyway, and speaking to other believers, there is this constant struggle because we know, we are aware of this invitation that we've been given, but there's something in us that wants to take control and take ownership and take responsibility for. And there's nothing wrong with taking ownership for your life and being responsible for yourself. And these are really admirable things, noble things, important things to do, especially as you advance in age. But control was never really meant to be our job. And letting ourselves essentially is an invitation. It's us saying, let's let this mechanism that's already present in our hearts to be. Let's not get in the way of letting it happen, because the truth is that we often resist him. We often resist the Lord as he tries to take care of us. And as I was reflecting on this episode and figuring out what I was to share, I thought about this. I had this thought, and it sounds really bold, but I believe it's true that it really is our birthright to be taken care of. And on face value, that can sound entitled, because how dare you say it's your birthright to be taken care of by God? He's a busy man. He has very many things to do. There's Israel, there's Gaza, there is Ukraine. There are big issues and big topics, big matters that need to be dealt with. But he says he knows our name. He knows our every thought. The thoughts that he has towards us are countless and innumerable. And so in the midst of all the big stuff going on in the world, he still says, I have got you. We are his sons. We are his people. And I think, even saying these truths, I know that they comfort me as I utter them. But I am also very aware of something that rises up in me that says, I don't know if I deserve that. Who says I'm worthy of the care and attention that the Lord himself has promised me? And honestly, this is sin consciousness. I think, as the Bible is very clear on, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And when we are aware of the ways that we have fallen short, the natural consequence of that is to await judgment and to await punishment. So the idea that God could be faithful in the midst of our faithlessness sometimes is really difficult to comprehend and to accept, really. But that is this faith life that we walk. This is this life of surrender that we've been called to, is that even when we don't understand how everything works and we don't understand how in the midst of our imperfection, we have a Father who is genuinely perfect and good, is that we can hold on to these truths and actually let ourselves to be taken care of and to be abundantly supplied like he has promised. And this call to relax and not worry and stay in the moment and trust in the midst of pressure and chaos around us is really the work he's called us to. The Bible says that we should labor to enter into rest, not labor to figure everything out, but labor to stay in the place where we are allowing him to be the God that he wants to be in our lives and the Father, more especially, that he wants to be. So can we truly relax? Can we truly not worry? Can we truly stay in the moment? I believe it's possible. And again, as I said in the last episode, it's simple but not necessarily easy. And the truth is that he's always working. There's this song that we sing all the time. Even when we don't see it, he's working. He never stops working. And it's true. In the midst of our laboring to try and figure things out, unfortunately, we often get in the way of God actually working things out and figuring out strategies that we can partner with so that we can battle through life's pressures. But we can only enjoy the fruit of his labor when we rest and allow him to be God. So this posture of surrender, because really it's, do you know what? I'm thinking about the times when I was a young believer and the idea of being saved evaded me. And I really didn't really understand it, right? And I don't know if anyone was anything like me. And every time there was an altar call, you would go out because you weren't quite sure. You weren't quite sure if that salvation prayer that you prayed 5 years ago sufficed, or even 5 months ago, and you just kind of go again to just make sure that it happened. And each time, the all to Jesus I surrender, all to him I freely give would be the declaration. And when I look back on those times, I'm not sure if I had understood what it meant to surrender. Yes, it's one thing to declare a thing, but a posture is the more important thing. It's the state of your heart. It's a willingness to let go and let him be. I think more importantly, a lesson I've learned as I've matured in the Lord, maturing. Maybe I'm still in teenagehood in the spirit. I don't know. But the point being, I have now understood that surrender actually is a process. And when you do agree to this lifestyle of posture of surrender, as you journey with God and as you journey with not worrying and journey with not partnering with anxiety, you realize as you move from stage to stage that there are new levels of surrender you're going to enter into anyway. So we might as well just start the journey. Don't wait till you can give everything up, because I don't think that everyone is there and anyone is. It's us constantly becoming more aware as the Holy Spirit shines light on areas where we are holding tightly to and trying our best to figure out, where he then says, do you know that bit, that health thing, that thing where you thought you had let go of? Okay, now it's time for you to let go of it to me, and let me lead so that you can follow and I can lead you to life. So surrender is a process. And as we do that, we can go into deeper levels of rest with him. So when we are faced with the pressures of life and we struggle to stay in the now, what then happens, and what I've experienced, is that we partner with anxiety, who is a terrible, I'll say who, because it is, for the most part, a spirit. You partner with this idea, this spirit, this state of being of anxiety, where you then hurry into the future with your mind, your imagination, and try to figure out different scenarios and figure out what could go wrong and figure out the potential solutions of and potential outcomes of said solutions. And it is so tiring. Do you know what? Watch Inside Out too. And no spoilers, I'm trying not to spoil things, but there is a depiction of anxiety and what that looks like. And it really is terrifying, but I could so relate. And I was laughing at myself / slightly like, Lord, this is too real. But when we partner with anxiety, we are trying and failing miserably because we're trying to do what only God can do. He is the only one who's able to look at a million scenarios and figure out what the potential outcomes would be. And he wouldn't short circuit. He wouldn't combust and fail. So the truth is, it feels counterintuitive to not worry, and it feels almost irresponsible to not worry. Because, I mean, when you're growing up, when you're being raised by your parents and being raised by society, you know, we hear take responsibility, become an adult, and those things are important, as I mentioned earlier. But sometimes we tip into that unholy and unnecessary and ungodly part where we are trying to then take on God's role. It really is a dance, and it's figuring out what God is saying and then working with him and doing our bit as he's leading, as we're following. Because then the other end is then we go, oh, I just don't do anything and I'm just going to play video games all day. No, it doesn't work that way. It really is a dance. It's he's leading and we are following as his bride and moving with him. He's calling the dance and then we are doing it with him, essentially. I know I speak so woolly sometimes, but it makes sense in my head. But anyway, with a good shepherd, it is the opposite of counterintuitive to not worry. In fact, not worrying is the most responsible thing to do. And remember, as I said in the last episode, we get to not worry. It is a privilege, no matter how hard we find it to be. And there is a much better option to choose than worry, and surrender is it. And I am reminded of the story of Jesus, and we touched on this when we talked about emotions. When Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, this is him getting ready for what would be the hardest thing for any human being to do, to be punished for the sins of the world, to be punished for things you never did, and still love regardless. Luke 22:41 says, "And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed, saying, 'Father, if it is your will, take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done.' Then an angel appeared to him from heaven, strengthening him, and being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. Then his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground." So with all the pressure that Jesus faced from his passion, I believe he was faced with the same temptation that we are faced with and we're all familiar with. Is that temptation to internalize stress and then partner with anxiety. So the pressure becomes so overwhelming that we forget that our job is to stay in the moment and be with the Lord in the now and flow with him. What we then do is we'll go into the future and then try to overcome all the variables with our imagination, and to hold on tightly and to try and control all the variables that we can think of, which, by the way, we never do because life throws all the curveballs that we are not capable of imagining sometimes. Really tough. But how do I know he was faced with the same temptation? The clue is in the prayer. He is faced with this pressure. It's coming from the outside. He knows what's about to happen. But then what he does is that he redirects his perspective to that of the Father, reminding himself that he chooses to be surrendered to the Father's will. He says, okay, this is the cup that I know is coming. I know that I've been faced with and I agreed to. And if it's your will, can you take it away? But if it's not, let yours be done. So ultimately, he's praying a prayer of surrender, saying, in this moment, I just choose to be partnered with what you are doing. And everything that he needed to be provided for what he would be doing in the future would be coming from the place of surrender. And sure enough, an angel came right after to strengthen him. So notice that pressure didn't leave immediately. It's still there. But he prayed some more, relinquishing further control to the Father and allowing his will to be done for love's sake. So he fought that temptation to step away from the present and go into the future and try and figure things out with his imagination by repeatedly sending his focus back to the Father's will. And that is what surrender is. Do you know what? I was thinking about my journey with the Lord, reflecting on things we've been through together. And there was a season in my life where I was just so keen on hearing God's voice. So I've read in the Bible, like Jesus would wake up in the morning and he would go and spend time with the Father. And, I'm like, low-key jealous. I'm like, this is awesome. And I'm thinking, if Jesus, lived like that, I want to live like that too. I want to be able to hear God's voice all the time. I want to be able to, on a daily basis, genuinely eat from his mouth. And as Jesus says, we don't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Father. So I'm like, that means my daily bread should be his voice, right? So so I went on this journey with trying to hear from God and hearing the voice of the Lord and not waiting until there's an emergency, but like every day. And anyway, so I went on this amazing course where I learned to journal with the Lord. And I'll talk about this more in future episodes. It was wonderful. And God showed himself to me in just unique and amazing ways. And I just fell in love with him deeper. Just awesome. Well, anyway, the whole idea was you sit down in stillness and ask the Lord what he wants to tell you. Because obviously he knows you. He knows your every need. Even the things you're not aware that you need, he knows. So anyway, so I'm sitting down and my mentor will give me questions. I sit down with the Lord and I'm like, Lord, what do you want to say to me today? And guys, so I'm thinking like God's going to speak to me about purpose and destiny, taking over the world, conquering all the mountains and all this kind of stuff. And those things are obviously very important. But it just shocked me that a lot of the things you were saying, because a lot of things you were saying were about my heart. So one of the words that would come up repeatedly was relax. You need to relax. And I'm like, that's not purpose and destiny. Like, what's going on here, But he's like, you need to relax. You need to relax. Be still. You need to relax. And that was a theme coming up. So I went back to my mentor. I'm like, submitted my journal into her, and she's like, yeah, this is good. It means that, you need to trust the process because he's still working out some things in you. And my goodness, it's taken a while and still taking a while. And the truth is that I had no idea how tightly wound up I was. And honestly, God is still very slowly unwinding me. I'm still working through the perfectionism thing and the relaxation thing. But I became acquainted with the importance of living that life of relinquishing control and relaxing, and how God really does value rest and values us living from a place of stillness so that we can flow with him and move with him like in his own frequency. Anywho, and I'm now truly convinced that this posture of rest and surrender and trust and being content with the now is the way he wants us to live. So I believe that we can live with anxiety that comes from trying to manage every single aspect of our lives. And it's possible to not internalize stress because it's destructive and we're trying to control every single outcome. And I believe we can enjoy clarity when it comes to the times we're faced with difficult situations. We don't have to panic to make the right choice. As I was saying, I'm a recovering perfectionist. I'm so, I know this one all too well. I'm still working through it with the Lord. And I do believe we can enjoy peace that we were promised and without it being impeded by ourselves, quite honestly. I believe we can enjoy much more hope and optimism than we do normally. I believe that we can manage our emotions better and have emotional stability and just be more resilient, being able to bounce back because we're not tired from spending all our energy going into 2025 trying to figure out what our lives will look like in that era. And because that was never our business to start with. We actually have energy for today. Like Jesus said, he said, sufficient are today's issues. So stay here and let's partner together and deal with it. And we can stay in our lane. Like, let's not try and be God. Let's be the kids and just live freely and travel light. I was looking at the definition of surrender, and Britannica, one of the, what's the word? Dictionaries. I was going to say thesaurus, but no, dictionaries give really good definitions of it, obviously. And there are different definitions of surrender even within that dictionary. But the one I was really, that really resonated with me was the one that says to agree to stop fighting, hiding, resisting, etc., because you know that you will not win or succeed. And this made me think, like, do we fight God then? Are we hiding from God? Are we resisting God's love? Are we resisting his supply? Are we resisting his kindness? Maybe one, we don't believe we deserve it, or we don't believe that it's real. We don't believe that he actually means what he says when he says, today's today, and I will give you all that you require, and daily load you with benefits. Therefore, we're then fighting a losing game. So today I invite everyone, let's stop fighting, let's stop hiding, let's stop resisting, because all these things take effort and they tire us out. It is much more cost effective, it's much more energy efficient to relax and surrender. And yes, surrender involves vulnerability, because there is nothing more naked or exposed than giving your life over to somebody else, something else, and be at their mercy. But honestly, partnering with anxiety, whilst it may feel like the safer choice because we're in control, it is a spirit that will wreck us, and it is a much safer option for us to be at the mercy of Jesus, because he will take care of us. Anxiety tries and fails miserably to go into the future, to figure out solutions to problems that may not even exist right now. But surrender leaves us open to God's solution right now, leaves us open to what God is doing in this very moment, even if we're not sure of what the outcomes are. And surely his ways are better than ours. And surely he's much more intelligent than we are, much more skilled than we are, even on our best day. So guys, ultimately, anxiety is destructive and never a good option. It's a really bad partner, a really terrible friend, and an enemy of our souls. So thank you guys so much for listening. And as I said earlier, I don't want to be a fake guru, and I don't want you to be a fake listener either. Take some time to reflect on these things that we've spoken about today. Are there areas in your life where, even as we were speaking, as we were listening, where God is saying, do you know what, you're holding on way too tightly to this aspect of your life and it's causing you damage, it's causing you to malfunction. I need you to give it over to me, because I can take care of it and I can take care of you way better than you can ever imagine. Is there an area where we need to stop fighting, stop hiding, stop resisting, and be the sons and the daughters that we're meant to be? Let's take that moment and just say yes to the Lord today. Until next time, guys, I invite you to keep traveling light. Have an amazing time, and I'll see you soon. Bye.